welcome you, and I'd like to thank you for coming. So there's just one small step we're taking this weekend. We've done it before, we'll do it again. Different steps to strengthen our families. Each of us as an individual, we're representative of Christ Jesus. Our families, this weekend is designed to strengthen our families. Families are the bedrock of faith. And all I really wanted to say is this, that you folk are part of the counterculture. When I was young and I graduated from high school, I kind of drifted into the counterculture. And back then the counterculture included psychedelic drugs, surfing, doing your own thing, immorality. Well, today, you are the counterculture. You're the people who are standing against the dominant culture of the day, and you're standing with faith and power, and that power empowers our families. So praise the Lord. It's a wonderful thing to think that you're part. All we hear, you're swimming in a world of negativity. But what we're reinforcing today, this weekend, is, you know what? There's a counterculture. There's a way of living that people around the globe, here and there, little spot fires are springing up everywhere, of people that through faith in Jesus have discovered a powerful way of living that works. It's good for us. It's good for humanity. Okay, over to Ged.
Thanks for coming. And we're really excited to be here to share some of the things that may help. I guess in saying that, some of the things I'll we'll talk about today, you will go, oh yeah, that's nothing new. Yeah, I know that. And that's fine, because the whole idea of the weekend is for you to be energized and have more understanding about how to make your marriage, your relationships workable and or more workable. And you may not get it from my presentation. That's okay. I'm not offended. You may get it from talking to somebody over a cup of tea. And that's the whole idea of bringing couples together and swapping ideas of ways and things that have been helpful for you, and being able to have those conversations. It might be from the discussion groups. It might be from the talk tonight or Ben's presentation tomorrow. But whatever it is, the idea is to have that sort of come with that frame of mind that I want to glean what I can from this, and I want to take from it as much as I can. Now, a little bit about me. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in counselling, and have been a counsellor for 12 years. I work at a school with 1,500 kids from reception to year 12. But I also work in private practice where I see couples. So I see personally about 800 kids a year for appointments, and Briar sees about the same. She works with girls, I work with boys, and then I see about 200 couples and singles for marriage and relationship counselling, and they're varying degrees of the issues that they're brought. That they bring into the room. So from that, I guess we've sort of put together some of the things that are reoccurring that come up in marriage counselling that people find helpful, and there's all sorts of different things that we talk about, and a lot of them I call them templates, and that's why I like to have a whiteboard where I write things down. So that, because sometimes you hear things and it's just becomes words after a while. But if I write something on the whiteboard, first of all, I remember what I've said and I don't repeat myself as much. But also sometimes at the end, if you want to, you can take a photo of it. When you go back home or to your assemblies or in the weeks ahead, you might pull up all this scribble on your phone, look at it and go, oh, that's right, I remember this. And it'll prompt different things. So often it's the visual that'll prompt you rather than remembering what's said. I think we're going to video and record it all today as well. So, okay. So to start with, now there's some studies done on relationships. Obviously, there are people who spend a lot of time, and some people spend a lifetime studying marriage and relationship and how it works. One of the gurus of marriage and relationship is a man called Gottman, and he and his wife study couples, and that's all they do. And they do it over a long period of time. So that's called a longitudinal study. So what they did was they got a grant, and in the grant they set up a house. I think it was in Chicago, and it was the relationship house. So what it was a really upmarket, beautiful unit, and the unit had cameras everywhere, and recording devices, and two-way mirrors. And they told couples that volunteers that they could come and spend the weekend there, and they would record it. Now, behind the two-way mirrors, they had all their psychologists and students studying, and they noted, and they had different ones had to note different things. They noted the way they looked at each other, the way they responded to each other, the comments that he said and she said, and they recorded it all. So they had all these statistics of what happened. I don't know how they could possibly be relaxed in that environment, but apparently it was all behind walls and hidden. They knew they were going to be recorded, that's all. They didn't know that there was 20 people in the next room looking at them, and but that was it. And so what they did was, from that, they got all the statistics together, and then they did follow-up interviews 5 years down the track, 10 years down the track, 15 years down the track, and 20 years down the track. They found a predictor that was 94% accurate of divorce. And they thought, oh, that's interesting. And what it was from the statistics they had, the conclusion was the 5-to-1 ratio they came up with. Now, the 5-to-1 ratio is all about how you talk to each other and what you say to each other. So what they were saying is, for every one negative comment that a person makes, if they don't counterbalance that with 5 positive comments, then there's a 94% chance they'll be divorced within 10 years. Okay? Now, they were able to see that. They followed it up, and that was the case. So it's an interesting thing to start this session off with, talking about marriage, because the whole idea is sit there and feel really guilty this weekend about what I should have done or shouldn't have done or should have said and didn't say. But you know what? The reason you're here this weekend is not to condemn yourself and put each other down, but actually to take it on board and go, yeah, let's look at our lives and see what we can do with this information. Take it back. If it applies to it, if it doesn't, and I don't think anyone's perfect, and I think most of us here would be guilty of those statistics, but it's important to take that in mind, because communication is really huge in marriage. When I'm working with couples, then I often find that the communication and perspective is huge. So what'll happen is I'll get the man, and sorry about my artwork, it's just kind of terrible, but that is actually a woman and that's the man. Okay. And so they'll sit in the room, the couple, and often it's perspective. And I will say to him, what are you looking at? And he'll say, that's a 6. I'll say to her, what are you looking at? And she'll go, well, that's a 9, it's obvious. And he'll be going, no, it's a 6. She'll go, no, it's a 9, no, it's a 6. You've got it wrong, you can't see it. The problem is they're both right, but they're both wrong because they're unable to actually step into the other person's shoes and see life from their angle and from their perspective. And a lot of communication problems that we have is that inability to be able to just stop for a moment, no matter how convinced we are. And of course, it's a 6. And of course, it's a 9. They're both right, but they're both wrong. I'll talk to couples and he will say, but you said this about the car. and that we need to sell the car. And you said that it wasn't suitable anymore, and that it wasn't good. He took that from his perspective. There's nothing wrong with the car. Everything's okay. From the wife's perspective, but it's actually when the storm happened last year, we now have mildew in the ceiling, and we've got small children. So for her, it was all about the relationship with her children and their safety and their health. And so she was right. And for him, it was, his perspective was nothing about that. His perspective was, no, but it doesn't make sense to sell the car now because it's going to cost us a lot more to buy it and we can't afford it. And so he was right, she was right, but they had to actually come to a meeting together of differences and be able to see. He thought she was just being difficult, that she was just making it hard for him. He thought she was just being difficult. She thought he was being difficult, and he wasn't putting the family's health and safety first. So just to start with that now, as far as communication goes, up to 95% of communication are what we call non-verbals, okay? So that means body language. It's non-verbals are body language, tone, volume, how you say something, what your hands are doing, what your body's doing, what your face is doing. And so there's lots of things that are associated with non-verbals. And up to 95% of communication is that. Now, for guys, we sort of tend to hang in the verbal area, which is about 5%. So for us, it's all about the words. It's all about, but I said good. Yeah, you know, but I said, I love you. What's wrong with that? You know, didn't you hear the words? I said, I love you. And she's go, what? Everything about you says I'm a pain in the neck and you hate me and you find me annoying and frustrating. He's going, but I said, I love you. What else do you want me to say? So can you see the exaggerated thing of that? Now, the reality is that boys, we are not actually trained in these sorts of things. Now, I work at a school, 1,500 kids, reception or kindergarten to year 12, and you look at the boys, Briar, you can be a honorary boy. So the boys sit there and they'll sit in a row and they'll look at the ground and they'll talk and draw, scribble in the ground and make jokes, and every now and then they'll go, oh, yeah, no. So it's all about the words. Tone's got nothing to do with it. We have one tone, and that is boy tone or bloke tone. And the only time we look at the guy is if we're occasionally just seeing if they're laughing or not, because we haven't heard that they laughed. And that's it. And we're generally scribbling on the ground and that. And that's why if you ever want to talk to your boy about anything important, don't do this, because his brain will gloss over it and he'll go, I don't know where I am. I don't know. I'm getting backed in a corner. I'm going to be attacked. I haven't got a clue what to say. I don't know how I can deal with this. So what you do is go for a walk, go for a drive, go for a walk and talk. When we walking and talking, we can talk about the difficult things, the tough conversations we can start to have. By the end of it, it actually allows the flow to come, but by the end of it, you will probably be able to go inside and continue that on as well in that way. If I'm working with, when I'm working with boys at the school, especially teenage boys who don't say anything, everything's one word answer. Good. How you doing? Good. How's everything? Good. What's happening in your life? Nothing much. Yeah, that's the vocabulary of a teenage boy. And so if I'm working with them, what I do is I have a ball in the room and I just grab the ball and start throwing it. And they'll start throwing the ball back. And all of a sudden, it's like opening the floodgates, and they'll start talking. And did I spit on you? Sorry, danger in the first row. So while ever they're doing something, we've got a couple of learner drivers in our grandchildren, and as soon as they get in the car, it's like the switch turns on, and they'll talk and talk and talk and talk. And how's this going? And what's happened? Oh, what's happened with that? And then the conversation will go. As long as they're doing something, they don't feel as confronted, and it's a lot easier to talk. So part of understanding communication is understanding how each other works and being able to connect into that. Now, not every person fits the mold, but generally that's the way it operates. No, I'm not going to ask for any ladies who have got a guy who is not like that. You've probably trained him well. Now, about communication and relationship, we don't learn it from the boys at school. Most of it we learn from our mums, boys, or from our girlfriends or our wives. For communication and this sort of communication, most of us, we learn it from our mums or our wives. That's how we learn a lot of this, okay? Because from the time they're little girls right up till the time they're women, everything is about communication and relationship. Every game is about relationship, everything they do. If you observe kids and they're playing together, the girl will build a little house normally and have all sorts of things there that she's, whatever she's doing, it'll be about some form of relationship and a story that's going on around that play. For the boys, they see it and go, this looks just the perfect thing for me to smash down and kick around the floor. Wouldn't that be great? And we like to blow things up, and we're all mythbusters just waiting to happen. And we like to see things sort of thrown around. So different, completely different. Now, the world in this postmodern age says that men and women are exactly the same. We just can have a little operation and get rid of the penis, and now whammo, you're a woman, or vice versa. And that's what the world projects to us. It's easy as that. Biologically, we're exactly the same, no differences whatsoever. Most couples that I talk to, when I say that to them, they go, that is absolute garbage. We are nothing alike. We are absolutely nothing alike. And the reality is men and women are completely different. We think differently. And I guess that's the starting point for today. And it comes down to what I call the maths of it all. So in the world we have there you go. In the world we have a man and a woman, and they get married and become a married couple. And that's the terminology we use. We talk about people getting married and what a wonderful couple they are and all this sort of stuff. So they're generally, the math is 1 + 1 = 2. And that's often the way they live their life and the way they conduct their marriage, as well as two individual people who are a couple. But in the Bible, it's actually not like that at all. The Bible version of this is saying, actually, they've got the math wrong. It's not that at all. In the Bible, it is, in the beginning, God made Adam, and he made him in his own image. Then he decided that it wasn't good for him to dwell alone, so he took half of Adam and he made Eve. And then he brought the two together and changed the equation to half plus half = 1. So what that means is the half that he took from Adam is found in Eve. The half, so the other half that Eve needs to be complete is with Adam. So you're only half a person. I often say to couples when the man says, you know, and I don't want to sound like I'm down on men because it's just that sometimes we are a little bit clueless when it comes to relationships, and I can freely say that, and I hope nobody gets offended by that. But anyway, it is what it is. So the half that we're missing is in the wife. So when you're making all these grandiose decisions and predictions, and sometimes we use the scripture, the man's the head of the wife, so you've got to do everything that I tell you. I say you're actually thinking with half a brain, and that you're making choices and decisions with half a brain. How can you see the full picture if that half is missing from you? You're trying to function as a half a person, not a real person. So if I look at women in dealing with women, they will see everything completely differently to men. Now, actually, I've got one of these. Might clip my hands a bit cleaner. A bit of room here. So now you're probably... So basically what's happened is God's taken half of man and made Eve, brings them together. The scripture we often use in the weddings service, or we used to, I don't know if we still do, we quote the scripture from Genesis, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined unto his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Okay, two halves make one. And so when you're together, the whole idea is as you work and grow together as a couple, you can then draw from each other to see the whole picture in things, the complete picture. So when one of these things come along, a problem, and of course, once you get married, you never have a problem again because you can see everything clearly and life's great. The reality is problems happen, life happens, and you will have problems in marriage. Surprise, surprise. Not just in your relationship, but you'll have all sorts of problems that need to be solved. When a problem comes along, if it's 1 + 1 = 2, what tends to happen is he goes, you're the problem, and she goes, no, you're the problem. He goes, no, you're the problem. No, you're the problem. We get this situation. Whereas when we recognize that we're actually half plus half, we can't see the full problem and the full solution unless we join forces. We actually get rid of that and we join forces and we look at the problem, not the person, and we go, the problem is the problem, not the person. Okay? It's like a template that you come back to. Okay? If we're not looking at the person, but we're looking at the problem, and the problem might be exactly that. You might go, but he's the one who's not communicating. Well, that's living as a single person, not as a half a person, because a half person goes, the problem is we're not talking and we're not communicating. And how do we join forces to fix this and make it work? How are we able to see this from the different perspectives and see it right? We're both right, but we're both wrong. How can I help you communicate better? How can you make it easier for me to communicate better? When you sit opposite me and eyeball me and say, we need to talk, I shut down and glaze over and feel attacked. It's just the way that I am. Okay, well, how do we get around that? What do we do? Maybe if we went for a walk. Now, Ged said he throws a ball. No. Actually, I've got these little heads that I got from Japan. I don't know how they do marriage counselling over there, but they use them in marriage counselling. They're like a little baby's face, and they're made of silicone, and they're called Kaimaroos, and they throw them at each other in marriage counselling. So when they get cranky with one another, and so apparently they don't hurt when they hit you, but I've been hit by a few because I throw them to the boys in the classroom and they look at it and they go, "That's a baby's head." And they go, "Yeah." When you go home, tell your mum, and she says, "Oh, what were you talking to Mr. Pillon about today?" You can say, "Well, we just threw a few babies' heads around." And so they think that's a great joke, but that's kind of a dad joke. So, okay, so the problem is the problem, not the person. When it comes to communication, often it's perspective and it's a problem. Another thing as well is that no matter how most people I work with, they bring their parents' marriage and their upbringing into their marriage. Now, some of us have got amazing parents and they've parented really well, but regardless of that, our parents grew up in a different age. Their parents grew up in a different age and they had to adjust their parenting to suit the age in which they were living in. Different ages and different stages. And so we have to deal, you as parents have to deal with things that we never had to deal with. And I know working at a school, talking to parents, it's like there's so many things that they have to deal with now that we never had to deal with as parents, mainly because of technology and parenting in the digital age, the time pressure, everything seems to be speeding up, but we have the same amount of time. There are so many things in the world today. And I think one thing that I love about our fellowship is that we can have weekends like this where we can come in and just be recharged. We have meetings where we can come in and be recharged and have our batteries energized and just recalibrate and refocus. It's kind of like on your GPS when you make a wrong turn and it says recalibrating and it gives you a new route. And sometimes we kind of got to do that. We've got to do that regularly because when you walk out this door, it is a very different world out there than what I grew up in. It is a world where every single thing that is in this world pretty much will be attacking your marriage. It will be attacking your relationship. It'll be attacking your children. Now, doesn't mean we become Amish and we go out and separate ourselves and get back to nature and shut ourselves away from the world. We live in the world, but not of the world. But what it means is we have to work at, as a fellowship and individually and with each other, to make our world within the fellowship a sanctuary. Men and women, you have to work at home to make your home a sanctuary that's not got the world invited into it that's going to attack your relationship. It's going to be hard enough as it is. Marriage is always a work in progress. You will have to work at it. You don't just get married and everything's easy and that there is going to be work. You don't know if your partner's going to get sick. You might be just into your marriage and something happens. There might be a terrible accident that happens and they become incapacitated. You may have financial difficulties. The government might put interest rates up 12 times in a year. And you have to kind of deal with that and go, well, how are we going to work with this? You may not be able to get into your first home because of the way things are going. There are so many things that put pressure on a marriage. Then when kids come into the picture, then it just explodes everything by about 100%. And you've got other lives and people to think about as well, and their futures as well as yours. And of course, being parents, you'll criticise yourself and beat yourself up all the time because you'll have the parent gene. And the parent gene always says that everything goes wrong in the kid's life's your responsibility, and you've somehow contributed or caused that, and you will feel terrible because that's how the parent gene works. I don't actually have it, but a lot of men don't seem to have it as much as women. but it's because for women, everything is about relationship. And maybe I'll explain that a little bit. Now, most of you will have seen a thing that I'm going to rub this bit off. So if anyone, you can remember that 6 and 9, can't you? If you're a mathematician out there, you just got to remember 6 and 9. Okay, to remember that bit. So now you probably would have seen this thing going around, but I use it a lot because it seems to give a lot of understanding with men and women of how men think. So we sort of tend to think in boxes. Men, we have a work box, we have a TV box, we have may have a sport box, we have a relationship box, we have a problem-solving box, and that's one of our main ones. And we also have an empty box with nothing in it. That might surprise a lot of women, because for women, we actually think like that. And for them, it's like this tangled ball of string, but overarching that ball of string is one word, and that is relationship. It's all about relationship. When they go to work, it'll be about the relationships at work that they have with people and how they are and what's going on and how they work together and all of that sort of thing. For men, we'll be in the work box. We don't really care too much about the relationships at work. How you going, mate? Good. Okay. Solved. Don't even have to think about that anymore. How you been feeling? Oh, not too bad. Good. That's it. Done. Easy. That's sorted. We've got that covered. Most of us at work, for guys, whatever job we do, we're problem solving. And we're constantly solving problems all day for most of us in our workplace. Most of the men that I talk to, that's what we do. Our life revolves around problem solving. And so it's very difficult to get out of the problem solving box when we come home and take that hat off and jump in the relationship box. And this is a really important thing for guys to remember, that we need to actually sometimes jump out of the work box before we get home and jump into the relationship box. That means we're changing from being Ged the worker to Ged the husband and father. Now, when you get home, your kids need the husband, your kids need the father, not the workman. Okay, they don't need a foreman or a manager to walk in and go, pick up those toys, do that. What have you been doing all day? Well, to the wife or whatever, the place is a mess. You've been sitting around all day doing nothing. And what have you been doing? I've been out there slaving. I come home and the place is a mess. Pick some up, do this. Dinner's not even on yet. What's going on? So that's the foreman, the workman. He comes home, he's forgotten to take his hat off, and he's forgotten to put his husband hat on and his dad hat. The kids don't need a foreman or a manager. The wife doesn't need a foreman or a manager. The wife needs a husband who comes home, who understands, who is able to remember the 6 and 9. He's able to actually jump across to the other side, put himself in their shoes and go, how do you do this? How did you get through the day? They're at you all the time. You're constantly, there's a mess, a trail of destruction behind them right through every room in the house. How do you do that? You're amazing. I'm so glad you're there. That's what you needs to hear, guys. That's what you needs to notice, that she's been in the relationship box all day working with the kids, and she's been in the mum box, which is usually the box that's constantly on demand, and sometimes she just needs a break. And so it's important to be able to jump into each other's shoes and recognise that. In the same way, there'll be a time where Dad might need to unload and talk about things if there's something going down at work. Most of the time it'll be, how was work? Not bad. Now we can jump into the TV box and unwind. I can jump in the TV box, watch The Chase and yell at the TV and go, seriously, you don't deserve to win. If you can't get that question right, get off. So it's good. I can say that. The TV doesn't answer back. But I can jump in the TV box, unwind, 15 minutes, I'm right. And the day's gone. I might have heard horrible things all day, but at that time, I can relax and unwind, and that's good. Sometimes, and ladies, it's important to understand this, sometimes when your husband's in the TV box, he's really in the nothing box. He's just sitting there zoning out. And she goes, what are you watching? And he goes, I don't know. And sometimes you'll say, well, what are you thinking about? And he'll go, I don't know, nothing. And she'll go, that is impossible. Because there is nothing, there's no way you could possibly be thinking about nothing. Can the guys put up their hand if you've ever thought about nothing? Yeah. Well, it's more like a zone out box, okay, which gives us that. Now for women, this here has been winding up all day, and the way for that to unwind for her is to talk. And what she needs from her husband is not to jump into the problem-solving box and go, you should just tell, she'll go, oh, this situation happened at work and I was talking to this lady and this woman looked at me funny and I think, you know, that she's sort of applying for this job that I want and I'm kind of wondering how it's all going to go, and it's all about the relationships that are interweaving around that. But for her to actually unwind, she has to talk, and what she needs from her husband is not him to jump in the problem-solving box. Why don't you go and report it to HR? Why don't you just tell her to pull her head in? That's the same as him saying to her, you're an idiot. You haven't solved this problem. It's so easy to solve. You needed my brains to sort it all out. And this is so simple. And you have just, you know, it's a waste of time talking about this problem so simple. You're just stupid. Admit it. Okay. So we jump in the problem-solving box. We say things like that and we think, ah, oh, she's so lucky to have me. If I didn't solve that problem, where would she be? She wouldn't have a hope. Okay. So he thinks he's done a really good job. She goes off and she goes, why doesn't he get me? He thinks I'm stupid. He thinks I'm an idiot. I don't even know why I bother talking to him, because every time he does, he belittles me and makes me feel this big. He makes me feel like I can't handle things. He makes me feel stupid. And he doesn't validate what it's like for me and what I have to deal with and what I go through. That's how she hears it and thinks about it. Okay. So what she needs is a pair of King Charles's ears. Okay. She wants somebody who will listen, not jump into the problem-solving box. Now, that's really difficult for guys because when we talk to guys, we jump in the problem-solving box all the time. We expect it. We go, oh, I've got a problem with my car. Oh, have you got one of those? Have you got the Hyundai this? Yeah, apparently they've been recalled. What you need to do is this, this, this. Oh, thanks, mate. We appreciate it. We jump into the problem-solving box all the time with guys, and that's how we operate. You've got a problem. Every time we talk to each other, we like to share something that needs fixing, because that's what we do. Most guys, when they meet someone for the first time, the first question they ask is, what do you do? That gives us the whole picture. What do you do? It sort of helps us to know which box to put them in. It helps us to know what we're dealing with. And that's pretty much the wavelength we're on. So it's all about what we do against relationship. Okay. Now, what happens is as she talks and you listen and you validate and go, sounds like you've had a really terrible day. I don't know how you do this. You're amazing. And of course, you're going to get the job. You're obviously the best person. I love the way you do this and this and this. And I think you're amazing. And we're listening and validating and empowering her to be the best version of herself and to recognize and to be recharged and re-energized while she's talking, and this happens, this here unwinds, and she goes, I feel so much better. So, it's the function that's happening, and most couples will have problems because they're not meeting each other's needs. When we break that down, it's not often sexually, which the guy goes, what's she talking about? It is this sort of thing. It's meeting each other's needs. It's empowering each other to be the best version of ourselves. It's workability in relationship. And it is naive to think that marriage is easy. Relationships, communication is not easy. It is a work in progress, and it's workability that we look for. How well you can work together, how well you can step into the other person's shoes and see and be able to see, I can see how you would think that's a 9, of course, and validating them, not ridiculing them because you're not prepared to look at the other person's point of view or perspective. So then when a problem comes along, it's the problem's the problem, not the person. And that is where joining forces and the half becomes one. The relational side, buying a car is a good example. You buy a car, the guy goes, oh, we've got to get a Mustang. We've got to get a Mustang. I've always wanted a Mustang since I was a kid. I've got to have a Mustang. So that's his perspective. She looks at it from the relational side. But where are we going to put the baby seat and the kids, and how are we going to get them in the back, and where are we going to put all the stuff? We need a 4-wheel drive with a massive big area in the back, because every time we go somewhere, we've got to take the bassinet, and then we've got to take the pram, and we've got to take this and this and this and this. And I saw people pulling up here, and I said to my wife, isn't it great we haven't got to load the car up for half an hour before we go anywhere? Which you do when you've got little kids, but it does end eventually, those people. So, but she's looking at it from that side. So she's looking at the relationship side. He's looking at the dollars and whether we can afford it usually, and how the logistics of how we're going to make that. Now, that can be not necessarily so. Some men are terrible with money and their wives are really good with money. And sometimes it's the wives who are doing the figures and adding it up and saying whether we can afford it. That's okay, because we're half plus half equals 1. So the idea is to look for each other's strengths and use them, not I'm the man, so I make the financial decisions. Some men are hopeless with money. Some women are hopeless with money. So it's looking at each other's strengths, joining forces and going, how do we solve this problem? How do we work together? How do we get the whole picture? So she has her input about the car. Yes, we need something for the kids that we can put all the junk in, something that's safe, that I feel safe on the road. He goes, how do we make it happen? Let's work together, and then we'll go out and we'll buy this vehicle. So that's an example of seeing things from 2 different points of view, joining forces, half plus half equals 1, and solving the problem is the problem, not the person. But I want a Mustang. I've always wanted a Mustang. Tough. You're only looking at it from half a person, but actually you're not looking at that from a half a person. You're actually looking at it as, remember, 1 plus 1 equals 2. You're looking at it from a single person's point of view. And that's one of the things that I'll often say to couples, but I'll say, using that as an example, but you're actually talking like a single person, not a married man. You're talking now like a single person. You're not a single person. You're actually half a person that needs the full impact before you can make a decision. You are making that decision with half a brain. Worth keeping in mind. Okay. Now, any questions about any of that before we move on to the next bit? How long have we got to go? 15 minutes? Yep. 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 Are you looking at your wife when you said that?
When we talk about listening and we're validating what they're blabbing out and feeling, what if we're validating something that shouldn't be there? If it's like a wrong belief or if the right feel a certain way?
It doesn't mean you can't disagree. Yeah, no, this doesn't mean that at all. This is just a normal conversation. Of course, there are going to be things that you disagree on and we'll use, because it's sort of fairly safe, the Mustang. Of course, you're going to disagree, but if you are right and she is wrong, or she's right and you're wrong, then you will be able to have enough communication respectfully around the situation to be able to, and part of that, remember the 6 and 9, is to be able to jump into their shoes and see it from their perspective. And that takes work and it takes practice of looking at that and going, I can see how you'd think that. And I know this is really important for you to have the Mustang because all your life you've dreamed about it. And that, however, how can we make that work with 3 kids and all the junk we've got to take to the meeting every week, or the people we've got to pick up, and how are we going to be able to do that? And then, you know, so it's doing it respectfully, and that takes practice because emotions sort of come up, and emotions, especially anger and frustration, tell us something's not fair. That means we've been challenged. Our thinking has been challenged, and that's okay. We welcome, in a relationship, we should welcome conflict and challenge, because that's an opportunity to talk and sort things out. And when we do that, it actually cements the relationship. The relationship is based on a solid foundation, and the solid foundation, any foundation that's solid, has concrete, rocks, and metal. And it's the rocks and the metal that hold the foundation together. They're the tough things, the hard things. And it's the hard things that actually bring you together. You will look back and there'll be lots of good times and you'll say, oh, it's been a wonderful marriage. But there'll be the hard times where you've really got to get down to tin tacks and put the metal into the foundation. And it may be tears, it may be frustration, it might be all the emotions that come to the surface. But at the end, we end up with something solid that you go, you know what? We've gone through this together. We've really worked hard at this. And now we can see, as we're building on it, how important that was.
Can I just speak
Yes.
into that a little bit? One of the things that's really important to... one of the things that's really important, I think, to bear in mind as a couple is that you have come from 2 very different family systems. Every family has its own system, its own way of functioning, its own culture, its own traditions, and all of those sorts of things. So when you get 2 young people that come together, you're actually coming from 2 different family systems. And often that can be quite challenging, especially at the beginning, because what you are now doing is you're bringing 2 family systems into one space. And you have to realize that actually, you know, what I have learned, what I've seen in my parents' relationships, what I've seen in the way that I was parented, my siblings, etc. that was their marriage relationship. That was their family system. You are now forming your own. And one aspect of that is learning how to communicate in a way that is actually really suitable for you as a person, for you as a couple, and for you as spirit-filled people. So when there's conflict, your family system that you've come from may have been, especially for those that have come from the world, from a worldly family, they may have been very dysfunctional. And it's about learning how to manage that within your relationship, because you are not called to live your parents' marriage. You're not called to have your parents' family. You are called to form your own with the guidance and understanding of the scriptures. And I think that's a really important thing when you're learning how to communicate respectfully. And, you know, as you're saying, with sometimes things get elevated, things get cranky, things get angry. We have to learn how to manage that before we can move forward and actually problem solve together. And so, yeah, bearing in mind where you've come from and learning how to move forward in your own relationships is really important.
Good. Just quickly in finishing, I want to go through one thing that I think is really important for couples and individuals to do regularly. Now, and that is do a stock take. And a stock take in a business to see how the business is going. You look at your stock once a year, usually you count up the stock. You look at what's old stock that we need to sell and get rid of that's slowing the business down. What stock is moving and is great, and what new stock do we want to put in to take the business to the next level. With relationships, do a regular stock take, whether it's once a year or once a month if you need to, once every 12 months, whatever it happens to be, do a stock take where you sit down as a couple or go for a walk along the beach as a couple and you talk about what's slowing our relationship down. What do we need to let go? What is frustrating us or annoying us that isn't working as well as it should? What's that old stock we need to get rid of? And identify that with each other. And this is getting back to this. Yes, I can see how you'd think that. It's the 6 and 9, looking at it from each other's perspective. Yeah, I can see how when I do that, it frustrates you and that's sort of hard. And I'm going to work on that to get rid of it. Can you help me? Yes, what can we do? I'll give you a signal when you do it, and it might be this or it might be something like that, and put a bit of humour in it. And it'll look funny at the meeting if you do it. And they'll be going, they've got this really weird thing going on. But the main thing is to actually draw on each other's resources because we're wanting to fix things and make things better. What do we love about our marriage? And this is really important. What do we love about our relationship? And let's highlight that and be grateful for it and rejoice in it and shine a bit of a light on it. And then also, what do we need to put into our relationship that we've let slip? We never go out anymore. We never do anything that's just the two of us. It's all around the kids. Those sorts of things. And that might be, for some people, they might both love being at home and that's it. It might be, let's have a board games night and invite some friends over or something. We haven't done it for so long, and let's do that. Whatever it is, just it's allows your marriage to constantly be looked at, and it means you're not going around in circles. You're letting things go that need going, that's crept in over time. And we live, as I said, in a world where everything will be out there to attack and detract from your marriage. And we'll talk tonight about screens and recognise how that can interfere with relationship. And the difficulty with that is it's not outside the house, it's in the house. And it comes in, and that's where we need to spend some time talking about those things as well. So we're going to do that in a completely different session because it's so complex. But for you, do a stock take, do it regularly. We kind of do every week with communion. We stop and we look at ourselves and our relationship with the Lord, and the Lord goes, let a man examine himself. And we do a little stock take. What has to go? What do we love? What do we want more of? And what am I missing out on? Maybe I need to spend a bit more time in prayer because I've let that slip of late. So we do that little stock take. And so it's important to do it with relationships as well. And of course, if you've got kids, you need to include the family and the kids in that stock take as well. And what do we need to do? Do we need help with parenting and a bit more input from Pastor Bill, because he's the guru on everything? And so ring him at 2 a.m. and you can delete that bit from the audio. Okay, guys, thank you for everything. What?
Just the learning.
Yes. Yes. Now we're going to be moving into the discussion groups after morning tea, and there are a few things just to be really important of. One is take the learning with you, leave the stories in the room. Sometimes we'll talk about things that are important to us and we'll feel comfortable talking within that group. The important thing is confidentiality, be respectful of each other. It's not a time to gather information and then go away and go, oh, I wonder what they really meant when they were talking about this. Maybe they're having problems in their marriage. You know, it's not that's not the idea of this. It's not we don't want people to be it's not an opportunity to vent all your problems against your husband or your wife in these sessions as well, because that's not helpful. It is gleaning and generalizing and asking questions or talking about how would you work with this situation? What do you think would be a good idea to work with that? How could we maybe do a stock take? What are the sorts of things that come to mind when you're thinking about that? And there'll be all sorts of things that you might be thinking about after this session that you'll want to bring up in those sessions. Please be mindful and respectful of each other and also of each other's confidentiality. And that's really important because we want everyone to benefit and take what they can from it without it being negative in any way. Okay? Thank you.